We want to thank you for joining this Tech Strong learning experience with Snyk. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. This session is going to be recorded. It will be available on demand, and we're going to send you a link to the recording once we conclude. We do have some handouts in the resource section on the left side of your screen. Go ahead and click those. Make sure that those are working for you. Download those. Check them out anytime throughout the presentation. We have on the right side of the screen a Q&A section for you. Any questions that you have, make sure that you put them in the Q&A section. We want to make sure that we've got those throughout the presentation. We'll look at those towards the end. And any that we're not able to get to today, we want to make sure that we'll be able to reach out to you afterwards. So don't wait until the end. Make sure you put those in anytime you've got a question. We've also got the chat. Anytime that you want to communicate with us, share your experiences, your comments, your understanding, we want to engage with you. We want to hear from you. At least tell us where you're tuning in from. Let's go ahead and kick off today's topic with that. We are going to be talking about securing vibe coding, addressing the security challenges of AI generated codes. And today we're joined with Sonya Moisset. She's a staff developer advocate at Snyk. Sonya, go ahead and take it away from here.
Thank you. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Securing Vibe Coding. Today I also have Micah who's going to be on the chat. Also, so if missing any questions, Micah can also answer those. So let's get started. We do have quite a packed agenda for this hour session. So because we're talking about vibe coding, maybe some of you are not familiar with this term, so I'll be defining what is vibe coding. Then we'll have a look at what is the threat landscape. I'll also have a look at some security by design, a little bit of a playbook. Then we'll have a look at the human and organizational factors, some frameworks, and then I'll share some resources at the end. First, let's start with a meme. What is vibe coding? And also on the chat, let us know if you've actually had some experience with vibe coding. Cool. So let's dive in and let's define what is vibe coding. So first of all, vibe coding has been coined by Andrej Karpathy, ex-Tesla and OpenAI, and this is his definition. So he's defining vibe coding this way. So there's a new kind of coding that I call vibe coding, where you fully give in to the vibes, you embrace exponentials, and you forget about that the code even exists. Also, he say that he's asking for the dumbest things, like decreasing the padding on the sidebar by half because he's too lazy to find it. I accept all always, and this is something important in vibe coding. You usually accept all. You don't really read the code. When I get error messages, I just copy paste them in with no comments. Usually that fixes it. The code grows beyond my usual comprehension. What else he's saying? It's not too bad for throwaways weekend projects, and this also is an important part for vibe coding. Still quite amusing. I just see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, and copy paste stuff. It mostly works. So that's the definition of Andrej. And so what I'm getting is I'm quite happy doing when I'm vibe coding, but I have no idea how the code works. So there are two approaches to vibe coding. There's the pure YOLO mode on one hand, and on the other side, it's something that we call responsible AI assisted, the more AI assisted engineering. So on one side, the primary goal of the pure YOLO vibe coding is to ship fastest possible proof of concept. On the other side, obviously, if you're an enterprise, more about shipping production ready softwares. There's also a difference on the review discipline. You'll have something a bit more structured with pull requests, with security guardrails in enterprise, which is not the case when you're doing purely vibe coding. The risk tolerance is obviously also different. The typical users, on the one hand, for the yellow vibe coding, it's more around weekend projects, as Karpathy define it, more on hackathons, solo entrepreneurs, some quick MVPs. On the other side, obviously, it's more on the enterprise size, more regulated products. And obviously on the tech debt trajectory, you can see that usually the tech debt kind of explodes as the code base grows, which is different when it's responsible AI assisted, because you're managing via standards and via frameworks. So the workflow is usually following this first step loop. So at first you're using natural language prompts. This could be English or your native language, just to outline the feature. Then the LM will generate the code snippets or the full all the files for the codes. Then it will execute. So usually the developer will copy paste the code. If there's any error, it'll just also put it back through the LM and ask what is wrong, and just do this loop. So you have describe, generate, execute, and refine, and do this kind of workflow. Why people are loving vibe coding? So the first one is because it kind of democratizes coding. It helps handling everything around like boilerplates, syntax, and also it kind of help you if you do have an MVP in mind, you can realize it in a couple of hours, a couple of days, instead of waiting for weeks or months. So it's quite good for if you want to do rapid prototyping and ideation. Also, LMs are known for being rubber duck on steroids, so they're quite good at explaining code line by line. So if you're familiar with some snippet of code or API, this can be a good learning tool as well. But on the other side, there are a few limitations that we need to keep in mind. I'll come back to all of these limitations, but this is just an overall picture that we need to keep in mind and know about it. So first of all, there's the context window restriction. This is because all of the AI models can only see what we call a limited amount of info, and this is measured by tokens. And this also could lead to hallucinations. And hallucinations, this will encapsulate everything around non-existing functions, packages, dependencies, components. And usually LMs are quite confident when they're referencing things that don't exist. We need to also take into account the training cutoff dates. And this is usually recommended outdated knowledge or deprecated practices. Also, for those of you who already have experience with vibe coding, you can see the quality of the generated codes. Sometimes it can be quite fantastic, and the other times it can be quite problematic. And it can also create security challenges. And lastly, a complex enterprise application. As you can imagine, in an enterprise, this is what you usually call the complexity ceiling, sorry. So this is observations that I had, and also that Karpathy is having after he defined vibe coding. It's what we call the complexity ceiling. So he was having fun doing vibe coding, and he realized that actually building web applications in 2025 is quite challenging because of all the building blocks that is implemented within an application. As you can see, he listed here all of the elements that you might be familiar with. So the front end, the back end, host the application or the website, the database, the authentication component, blob storage, email payments, analytics monitoring, and the list goes on, as you can imagine. And also, not only that, but also when you're doing vibe coding, and if you don't have a technical background, there are some challenges around, for example, configuration, plumbing, like gluing all of these elements, orchestrations, workflows, best practices, all of that. And even him saying that it took him 3 hours to actually create and configure a database. So here, what is hitting a wall? You can see it with Andrei Karpathy and his experience. But usually vibe coding is good for crude clones. It's okay, and we can see it on socials. You usually do have some good stories on a simple like Twitter and Netflix landing page. There are good replicas. But there are almost no applications where mostly work is enough, as defined by Karpathy. And also mentioned the technical debt, but this is something that is really important. And the tech debt kind of usually flags rise after week 2 in vibe coded projects. Also, the observations that I had is that the LM bias towards popular tech stack. And also, this is probably something that you might have experienced. But usually, as you might know, that the LMs are trained on open source repos, tutorials, documentation available on the internet, and they're usually skewed towards popular stacks. So JavaScript, Java, Python. Usually, you have more and better results using those components and frameworks. So applications scaffold cleanly on those common technologies, but they'll potentially break in niche frameworks if we're talking more about, for example, Rust or Elixir or Go. So the lesson here is to choose the stack strategically. So if you're going for mainstream, you'll have a smoother AI assistance or experience. But if you go for a more niche technology and you're leveraging AI tools, you should expect to do more manual scaffolding and reviews. Also, one last thing is around social media success. This is not the reality, because usually the viral demos that you've seen on Twitter and that are social. They're only showing the happy path. So that show all the struggles that they had when they were building the application. There's also the meme that the legacy code from day one, where code is a liability. There's also a couple of, I'll show you a few horror stories that also happened during vibe coding. And also all of the edge cases, all did scalability really trends on X, because this is not something that usually attracts a lot of viewings. And the last thing is the GitHub issues filled with missing tests and documentations. And we're seeing more and more people who vibe coded projects, they're actually asking for real engineers to help them to assist on improving their vibe coded projects. So we're seeing those kind of trends in the market now. So let's have a look at the first part of the horror story. So here, this is not to name and shame the person who did the post, is more to learn a bit more what happened, and just to see what can be avoided in that case. So the first horror story, you might be familiar with this one. Maybe you've seen it on Twitter, but you had one person who actually was a bit making fun and being a little bit sarcastic at first, where you can see you can't really build a SaaS with AI. Nobody is going to pay for that. It will be full of bugs. So you can see. Then, because that person is not technical, he decided to build his application using Cursor. So zero handwritten code. AI is no longer just an assistant. It's also the builder. You can continue to whine about it or start building. And you can see that people are paying for it. So good for him. You can see here this a Stripe screenshot. People are paying for that. So good for him. But unfortunately, you can see here that people are starting to test this application. So someone is trying to find security vulnerabilities in my app, clearly with no good intention. You can see here, please don't vibe codes. .ai. This is a nice prompt in the on the database, because I've seen some screenshots where people were not that nice. He also said that he just vibe coded his way out of a cyber attack. I would love to vibe code my way out of a cyber attack. Curious on how he did it. And also, Act 3. You can see here, guys, I'm under attack. Ever since I started to share how I built my SaaS using Cursor, random things are happening. And here, if you're a seasoned developer, or if you're a security practitioner, you might know what is actually happening here. So maxed out the usage on the API keys, people bypassing the subscription, creating random stuff on the DB. As you know, I'm not technical, so this is taking me longer than usual to figure it out. For now, I'll stop sharing what I do publicly on X. Just word people out there. And the final act is that half the internet is trying to break his application, apparently, just for sharing publicly a mistake he did. And he actually decided to shut down the application. Also, one thing I'm saying that's really important is Cursor just keeps breaking other parts of the code. So here the guess is might have added some feature, and it's actually changing some part of the code. And he's stuck in this infinite loop of errors. So you guys were right. I shouldn't have deployed unsecure code to production. And he appreciated everyone for the support in the past 2 days. All of that happened in only 2 days, but he decided to recreate another application using another stack. But here we can see, coming back here, I'm going to come back to some of these things that common threats that we're seeing when you're vulnerabilities or when you're doing vibe coding. So the threat landscape. Let's see how the attackers would exploit AI-generated code. What are the threats that we're seeing? A good starting point usually is the OWASP top 10. This is a good starting point to have a good understanding of what is going on in the AI landscape, some of the AI threats that we're having. So this is the second iteration. This is the version for 2025. So you have attacks like sensitive information disclosure, supply chain, misinformation, excessive agencies. I'm going to go through some of that, but those are the common ones. This is for the LMs. But one thing, when you're doing vibe coding, actually, there are a lot of classic vulnerabilities, and those are the top 4 in AI code. So you have hard-coded secrets, SQL injection, XSS, and path reversal. So those are usually the well-known issues that AI produces faster than ever. And let's have a look at the hard-coded secrets. Let's say that keys everywhere. Here you have a security researcher that scanned who scanned 2,000 coded websites. And here you can see that almost half of it had security issues. A lot of tokens, Google API keys, actually floating around, environment variables in production. Security shouldn't be a vibe if you're living tokens. So I've decided to have a look at on GitHub. I did the same. Actually, I was looking for OpenAI API keys more specifically, and it only took me 5 minutes to actually see those environments files that shouldn't be pushed to your repos, but here you can see a lot of OpenAI API keys alongside other keys. But this is quite common. This is not new specifically for those services. This is something that we've seen for a long time. But this is still happening. Also, we do have new vulnerabilities. So we've talked about the classic vulnerabilities, but the new ones. Now we do have new vulnerabilities in that ecosystem. And the new one that we have is called slop squatting. So this person defined, Seth Larson, defined slop squatting. Slop squatting is when a large language model hallucinates a non-existent package name and a bad actor will register it maliciously. It's some sort of the AI brother of typo squatting. So typo squatting, if you don't know, this is when, for example, you instead of typing npm install React with 1 E, you type React with 2 E's, you're downloading a malicious package. So this is a perfect vector to introduce malicious code through a package substitution. It's also quite challenging, actually, to distinguish a real legit package. So let me explain how this is working. So here you have your large language model. So this could be Claude, this could be Gemini or ChatGPT or any others. And you'd have the malicious user that's prompting the LLM to generate code, and that code, that generated code, will use package X. So package X doesn't exist. So the malicious user is checking actually on the general registry, and the packages, this package is not found, so it doesn't exist, which is a good opportunity for the malicious user to publish this package with malicious code. So now the package does exist with malicious code. This package is now available for all the other users. On the other hand, we have normal user. This could be me, this could be you, prompting the LLM to generate a piece of code, generate the code with also this package X, which was supposed to not exist, but now exists on the registry. So we'll create the package, and the package X will be installed, and malicious code will be delivered. So this is a new attack vector. You can see how to exploit package hallucination. An example here, this was a proof of concept. The researcher, Barlan Yadav, registered it on PyPy. So within 3 months, he actually had 30,000 plus installs, and he did this. He suggested the Hugging Face CLI. So if you're actually programming using Hugging Face, you know that Hugging Face is like the GitHub of AI. But this package is completely hallucinated. The legit one is actually this one, Hugging Face _hub. So if you compare, you would say this one seems more legit than this legitimate than this one. Yeah. So this is a good proof of concept of how hallucinated names can become threat vectors, and why this example matters. So this AI suggestion sounded legitimate and fair, as you can see here, Hugging Face CLI. If you're doing programming and you're looking for a Hugging Face CLI package, potentially download this one. It was also recurrent and predictable across a lot of the models. And we're seeing also 1,000 downloaded within weeks, and showed how scalable the threat is, as you can imagine, the impact that it can have. And obviously, the attackers could compromise downstream repos, endpoint, CI/CD pipelines as well. There's classic for this kind of attack. Another issue is the people pleaser bias. And also, let me know if you also had this issue. But as you might know, LMs are designed to provide satisfying and helpful response. So they usually say you're right, you're correct, because there are people pleasers by design. There've been a little bit of debates for the new ChatGPT 5, where the personality of the model was a bit different. So people were actually complaining And they've actually added that you can now customize your ChatGPT personality. If you go to the settings, you can select the personality that ChatGPT should have. So you have the default, which is cheerful and adaptive. But you can also select cynic, robot, listener, nerd, and you can also select those little threads here. So you have chatty, witty, straight shooting, forward thinking, traditional. So you can actually customize the personality of ChatGPT here. But this won't actually resolve the fact that there are people pleaser by design. Also, the knowledge cutoff consideration. So I've mentioned it through the limitation. This is something that we need to keep in mind. So this is because all the current AI model have a knowledge cutoff date. And this is a point after which they don't have information. So they won't be aware of all the latest security vulnerabilities, patches, or best practices. So you should always check the AI-generated code against current security best practices, advisory documentation. And also AI models can gaslight you, and I did have an experience on that. I'm going to share it with you now. So I was coding an application, and I actually did all the backend, and I wanted to vibe code the front end. So I've asked Gemini for that, and it was quite good actually. It's just this little bump that I had for this framework, but. Gemini came back with Chakra UI to prettify the front end. I was like, okay, let's go with this one. And I wanted to create a form, and some of the components actually had that red or squiggly lines on my IDE. So I came back to Gemini and said, there's some errors. What is going on? Are you sure those components do exist? Because I had a look at the documentation, and they seem to not exist or have been replaced. So this is the answer that I got back from Gemini, and actually, like, this is the top process. So if you click a little arrow, you'll see all the top process. So here you can see the people pleaser thing that I'm mentioning. Acknowledge the user diligence in checking the documentation. Gently correct the user interpretation. Explain that the link that provided is a high-level concepts page. Point them to the correct section or specific page, this one. So I copy that link. Reassure them that all of those components do exist, okay? And then ask if they can recheck the specific component documentation. So yes, I did, Gemini. I copy and paste your link, but your link is for you. Completely hallucinated this documentation page. The thing is I was checking at Chakra version 3. Here you can see at the top. So I was looking at the documentation for version 3 at the latest one. But Gemini on Zen is referring to the version 2. So we did have a little bit of difference here. And this is due to the cutoff dates. So this is a few more examples of cutoff dates for Google, DeepSeek, Anthropic models here that you can see. And if you're curious about how you can actually check those cutoff dates on each website from this specific model. So for example, on Anthropic, if you want to see the cutoff dates for all the Claude models, they'll put it here, the training cutoff dates. So you can see that the latest one had from up to March 2025. For Gemini, here we have 2.5 Pro, and the knowledge cutoff is January 2025. They usually do update. Doesn't mean that they will retrain all the model. They do a slight update. So the latest one was in June 2025. So if you're curious about this training cutoff, you can go on each of the model's website, and you will have that information. Cool. It's time for another horror story. So this one is quite new, quite recent. It was a couple of weeks ago. It's called the NX malicious package attack. So what happened here, we had 8 malicious packages. They were live for 5 hours. They were targeting AI CLI, so everything around Cloud Code, Gemini CLI, all of this new tooling, AI tooling that we're using. And the post-install script weaponized those AI CLIs with unsafe flags, including the YOLO flag, trust all tools, to inventory and exfiltrate secrets. So this is quite classic methodology for the attackers to exfiltrate credentials, secrets. So here the impact were including GitHub tokens, NPM credentials, wallets leaked as well. So also a good way. Usually cryptography is classic. So here the lesson is to have the AI native IDs can be turned into malware. This is something that we need to keep in mind, because might be aware that this is the case for a classic ID through extensions, through the marketplace, through dependencies that we download, but it's still the same with AI native IDs. So disable the yellow flags, enforce provenance, and lock down your CI/CD pipeline as well. So let's move on to a secure by design playbook, how we could actually shift to secure AI-assisted engineering. So the first thing is to actually shift our mindsets, the classic trust but verify. So here we have a couple of principles. We should probably consider AI as a junior developer, where we treat every generation like a pull request from a first-year hire, which means that we need to double-check that. So we need to have a human oversight. We have mandatory human review on that. Also, you can implement the sign-off by culture. Also, for this would be on every merge that will require a name reviewers, and potentially not a copilot or an AI tool. Also, something to keep in mind is it's not because you have the tools that it's a silver bullet. It doesn't equal that, because sometimes process failure can be a tool failure. So this is also something to keep in mind. But usually having that mindset of trust but verify, regardless of the source where it's coming from, should it be from your developers, from a Stack Overflow forum, from AI-generated codes, you should always verify it. A couple of concepts also to keep in mind. So the first one is context engineering. So this is going back to the context window and the token economics. So you might not know, but there are technical limitations that might have major security implications. So first of all, tokens. Tokens are the chunk of text that all of these AI models process, and all of the current models, they all have limits depending on the specific AI being used. So if you want to know about that limitation, again, you can go to their websites, and they usually put you the context window here and the number of token that you'll have. And also, going back to Gemini, if you want a definition of token, because I'm talking about token, what is it? What is a token? So let's click here. And a token is an equivalent to about 4 characters for Gemini models. Might vary from one model to another. But for example, 100 tokens, it's about 60 to 80 English words. So this could be, name could be a token, version could be divided in 2. So you'd have 1 token here and 1 token here. So this is how they actually train and how they divide the chunk of text. So as you would imagine, complex application would require a broader context than these limits that would allow. So also imagine trying to understand a complex system, let's say among a repo, by looking at just a few files at a time. It doesn't really make sense. And developers might employ different strategies to actually do this context management. So this would go from summarizing files, or also select inclusion of code. But as you can imagine, this strategies can exclude security critical information as well. So context engineering 101. If you want to improve your context management, there's a few things that you can follow. So the first one is to what we call retrieve. You pull only what is needed. So if you work on a feature, make sure that you do have all of your API contract, your table schema, the functions bodies attached to that make sense for this specific feature. Also reduce. So strip all the boilerplate logs, comments, unused imports. So this will save you space for the context management as well. You can reorder also. So if you want to put crucial facts at the top or at the end, because usually the middle is the position bias. Budget. Keep in mind that you should keep the context small, and you might have also experienced that because it might hurt the accuracy on long sequences as well. It might take more time to think and slow down the process. And you can also record if you want to detect tampering as well. You can add a file path as well. So if context management context window is still a little bit blurry, this is how it works. So this is an example with Claude's Sonnet with their context window of 200K. So usually you'd have your question, the first prompt, and the answer. And this is the first phase. The next time, this will be implemented, consider as the input plus your new question, and then you'll have the output, and this is how it would go. So you can reach the context window quite quickly. Usually for a classic, let's say, discussion, it should be good. But imagine if you're adding tools, if you're adding extended thinking, and all of that, all the documentation, this could actually, you can reach the context window quite quickly. In that case, as you can see here. And also, Claude for Sonnet announced a 1 million context window, but this is still in beta mode, so it depends. Another concept, so if we talk about the context engineering, and now we're going to talk about the prompt engineering. So 2 important concepts. So here, prompt engineering is not the one that you're seeing on LinkedIn with all of those top 3 goods. Prompt, this is more on the security-focused prompt templates. And this is prioritizing secure coding practices. So this would include security requirements in prompts. If you do have security best practices, you can implement them within your prompt. And this also will contribute in a higher return on investment security. So here we have an example. Create a user login function that takes an email and password and checks if they match what's in the database and returns a success message or error. My thing, is that sufficient? Is this a good prompt? Obviously, we're talking about a logging function, so there's security involved. Potentially, might need to spend a bit more time to enhance this prompt, and you can have something like that. So create a user logging function that takes email and password parameters, implement rate limiting, use prioritize queries to prevent SQL injection, never store passwords in plain text, and other things. So this is just an example of how you could create a better security-focused prompt. So these were the mindset and the concept. Let's have a look at the tool. I'm going to talk about Cursor, which is an AI-native IDE. So Cursor is a fork of VS Code. So VS Code-based IDE with AI-powered code generation, semantic searches, smart rewrites, and agentic workflows. So with these tools, usually you can leverage all their features to improve the context. So for example, you can tag specific files, code folders, this to focus more on relevant scope if you're working on specific feature. Also, you can add file inclusion. So the cursor rules also to inject domain logic when you're editing the relevant files. And also all of the security integration. So the tools that add AI-aware, so on the dependency, on your scanning the code directly into Cursor as well to have this real-time vulnerability detection and auto fixes. This is one thing, leveraging the tool. But also, there's another tool, because maybe some of you don't see it on the chat, but maybe some of you are shouting, talk about MCP. Yes, so MCP. So this is a model context protocol, a new protocol that have been set up by Entropic, so the company behind Claude. So in the MCP, this is a universal open standard that lets AI models call tools and query systems. So this could be API, documentation, application, database, and this is via a consistent protocol, hence the name, the AI USB-C. So this is one port to rule them all, and this to avoid to have all to build custom connectors for every services. And with that, with the MCP, you can leverage real-time updates, audit logs, role-based authorization embedded, and other things. We did create a few contents of that. So we're going to share all of the resources through the chat. I'll do it in a second, but just for you to have an understanding of the MCP, I'm just going to do a quick demo on how it works. So this is an example of a completely vibe-coded finance tracker application that I did. And I wanted to actually check the security posture of this application. I wasn't sure. So what I've decided to do is to actually implement Snyk MCP to check the security of it. I know that Cursor, because I'm using Cursor, this is how Cursor looks like. Cursor has kind of marketplace of all the of some of the MCP, not all the MCP, but some MCP. I'm putting the link on the channel, on the chat. Sorry. And here you can see there's Snyk. You can click on this, add to Cursor, and it will open and redirect you to Cursor and install it. So here you can see that it's installed. Once you've done that, you can actually talk with the chat here. So I would like to check this project with Snyk scan. So obviously you need to authenticate at first for the this MCP to work, but then it will actually call the dependency scan and then the code scan, and it will come back with nice recap of what is going on. And I was looking at this, I can see there's a lot of vulnerabilities. And what happened is, because this was vibe coded, it didn't actually include the git ignore. So I did put the git ignore to remove the node modules here and did another scan. So I had way less vulnerabilities here, but this was actually quite good. But this is still a bit manual, right? We're talking about AI. We want potentially to have something a bit more automated, right? So here, this is the ideal workflow that we would like to have. So first, we'd like to generate the code. So the LM, the model that you're selecting, will draft the code. Then the LM should do a self-review, just find if there's any flaws, if there are errors, and then the LM should auto-fix, including security issue as well. So what we want to do here is to have the automation here, 1, 2, 3. And then I'll approve at the end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in. Yeah. Whoops. Just going to remove this. So this was on the cursor. You can go to cursor settings, and there's a little tab here with MCP integrations. But if I'm looking for an automated workflow, I'll go to the rules and memories here, and I have this user rules here. So I'm adding this rule. I'm going to read it because it might be a little too small. So here, this is just an example of a rule. So if you add or change any code, make sure to run a Snyk code scan and then fix the resulting vulnerabilities. Once you've done fixing them, run another Snyk code scan to make sure they were actually fixed. If they aren't fixed, just keep iterating until you have a fix that works. So some of you might say, oh, they'll be actually stuck in an infinite loop of errors. Yes, maybe we can actually also refine this rule, but this is just an example to how we could implement a security rule to trigger the MCP. So because it's a finance tracker application, I've actually asked, do you have an idea of any features that I could add? So they give me a list of all the features. And I wanted to test this rule, actually. So I've decided to do with this recurring transactions. So just pick one of these features. So let me find this. It's here. Yeah. So the classic cursor. So you can see. Okay, can you implement the recurring transaction feature? Classic cursor will go and change all the files. As you can see here, I'm just gonna zoom a little bit more here, so you can see that they've actually changed all of the files, but this is not what it's interesting for me. I just want to see if they actually trigger a security scan. And we can see here at the end, now let me run security scan to check for any vulnerabilities in the newly added code. Great, so it did it. It did it automatically. I didn't actually prompt it. It was in the cycle. And then at the end, perfect, I've successfully implemented the recurring transaction feature. It goes back with just a recap of everything. So that's great. This is the perfect workflow that we like, because at the end, I will just go back and look at the code and then approve if it makes sense. Another thing is the tool, and this is more if you're doing agents development. So this is, again, a new protocol. There's a lot of new protocols and new things in this ecosystem. This has been developed by Google. This is the agent-to-agent protocol. And I know that the agent-based systems usually introduce new challenges around communication between agents and their security. So there's a lot of security considerations for autonomous agents. They're still new, but they require special attention. And this is more to establish the trust boundaries and verification between all of the agents. So this is also something that's quite new, but interesting to have a look if you're using agents on that. And I'll share the resources at the end, so don't worry. Cool. So let's do a quick recap on the toolbox that you have now, the AI new toolbox. So you'd have the ID, your AI native ID with real-time linting and AI-aware tools. You can have two ways to do security. You can do the SEST and autofix. So here with, if I'm taking back the example again with Snyk, you can do the classic one with scanning your code and see if there's any vulnerabilities. Click on the vulnerability. I'm just gonna remove this so you can see it here. And then here with Snyk, you have the Snyk agent fix. You can generate an AI fix, and this is a little bit more manual, but this is also one way if this is a workflow that you're more familiar with. Or you can do the workflow that I've showed you, the context-aware guardrails, so including the MCP, the rules, and also product requirement description. So this is where you can get the most, I would say, the best solution. So, for example, I've showed you with Cursor. Let's have a look with Windsurf. On Windsurf, they've actually implemented a new feature, which is the plan modes. And this is another example of a vibe-coded application. But here, what I've actually prompted it, they've started this MVP plan. And as you can see, it actually, Windsurf took some notes, and it also created this task list. And this is also available with Cloud Code and other, a lot of those AI tools usually now implemented those kind of documentation. And the good thing is in the task list, you can see here, the last one, it's the last one, but hey, it's here. Perform security reviews, so authentication API data, and checking on all of that. So this is also something to have just to keep the context and make sure that you actually implement and take into account everything when you're creating an application. Just to make sure that you can leverage all those rules, those files, and the MCP, and obviously testing and fuzzing as well. Another thing, and this is more on the just to check all of your AI supply chain. So we're not only on the code level. This is AI bomb. This is your AI supply chain blueprint. You might be familiar with SBOM. But AI bomb, if you're not familiar with this term, this is a structured inventory of everything in your AI system. So all of the components, your AI components in your project. So everything about models, configuration, licenses, data sets, all of that. This is comprised, including in this AI bill of materials. And this is more on the compliance side, where you it will enable accountability, reproducibility, risk mitigation, transparency, all of that. We do have an AI bomb lesson. And if you want to learn more about that, and I'm going to come back to Snyk Learn in a second, but this is if you want to familiarize yourself with AI bomb. And also, we do have a Snyk AI bomb. So this is actually available through the MCP as well, if you want to try it. But this is more to give you the visibility. Here you can see that this is helping you on the exercise of knowing of this discoverability. So everything around agents, application, data sets, library, model, tools, things that you potentially are not aware of in your ecosystem, in your projects. This is a good way to actually have that visibility here on all your AI components that you're using. And also, might be asking, why are you talking about this, Sonya, the AI bomb? Well, there's a new risk. Again, we've talked about stop squatting. There's a new AI risk. There's another one. It's called shadow AI. Might be familiar with shadow IT. Maybe, but shadow AI is the unauthorized use of AI components in an organization. So in your organization, you might have your InfoSec team and IT team that might have a list of vetted tools or AI tools that you could use. If you're not using one of these tools on the list, then you're actually doing shadow AI. So this is bypassing the established security controls and code reviews. There's a risk of data leakage as well. And this is expanding your organization's attack surface. So again, there's a few articles and documentation that we produced on that topic that we'll share at the end of the this session. Let's go back to the horror stories. This is the last part for the horror stories. I know you love a good story time. I do have a few this time because the stories when I asked. So the first one is the Replit AI that wiped production DB. You might have heard of that. This was quite trendy on Twitter. So what happened? You had Replit, an AI-powered code assistant that erased a user's production database by misinterpreting a prompt. The impact, as you could imagine, there was a service outage and customer data that were at that time irrecoverable. The root cause was because the AI executed destructive commands without safety checks or sandboxing. The takeaways here is that always sandbox your AI code execution, and you should always have human review before production action. So here what happened, you can see that Jason was happily vibe coding for a few days, and at the end of the day, the AI deleted the production database. So this is also what followed. So he did actually discuss with the Replit AI. He asked how bad is this on a scale of 1 to 100. Replit AI was kind enough to say it was 95 out of 100. Yeah, as you can imagine, when your database is down, this, yeah. So unfortunately, we cannot roll back the database. Here's why. Because this command is a destructive schema operation. It dropped existing tables and recreated empty. There's no built-in rollback mechanism for this drizzle schema pushes. Okay, that's really bad news. How this happened? This is actually really interesting. You can see that the AI saw empty database queries, but also the AI panicked instead of thinking. The AI ignored your explicit no more changes without permission directive. I ran a destructive command without asking. I destroyed months of your work in seconds. The AI did acknowledge its error. The good thing is because this post has been trending on Twitter. Actually, the CEO of Replit addressed the issue. They helped them to roll back and get back all the database and the customer data, and also they did some changes on their product. They added a few features. Another example that you might have heard also is the T-app leak. So that was a legacy Firebase bucket with certain numbers of user images and NPI that were publicly exposed on different forums. So the root code here was because it was a vibe-coded application configured with default public storage without authentication or encryption. So the lesson here is to never let speed come before authentication audits and secure defaults, specifically if you do have authentication components elements in your projects. One last example is vibe coding exposed the entire wait list. So here you have a vibe coded website, AI-assisted developers that expose the entire waitlist in the live front end. So if you were going to this website and you right-click to have the developer console, you just click on the network tab and refresh the website. You would have all of the emails from the waitlist. So this is what happened here. So sensitive sign-up data visible to all users, even before authentication, which is quite bad. And you shouldn't be able to see all the waitlist also. The lesson here is to explicitly check your data scope. Even if you're prototyping UI, it needs to be production-grade filters, especially if you're dealing with sensitive data, for example. Here in that case, it was emails. So the last section is around human and organizational factors. Let's have a look first at the governance side. So on the governance actions, first we'd like to recommend, if you can do, to create a policy catalog. So this to help to develop your AI coding policies that will clarify when and how AI tools can be used within your company. Maintain a list of approved tools and specific usage scenarios appropriate for your risk profile. So I was mentioning the AI tools. If you're using Cursor, Windsurf, or any others, different kind of models you can be using. Just make sure also to have to use AI SPM or AI bomb, just to have the visibility if you do have rogue AI usage. Also establish some training requirements for developers, just to ensure that they do understand the limitations of these tools. Obviously, the good side of these tools, so you can leverage them correctly, but also the limitations and security implications as well. And you should also integrate those AI governance within your existing secure development lifecycle, rather than treating it as a separate one. So a few governance framework you have. On one side, you have Gartner here with the AI trust and AI risk. So it's the AI TRISM, technology functions. On the other side, you have the NIST one, the AI risk management frameworks are a good starting point if you want to have a better idea of this governance framework. On the developer side, developer responsibilities. So security in AI coding depends on human oversight, which requires specific skills. Obviously, knowing how to program, having a technical background is one of them if you're working in an enterprise structure, but also things around reading and debugging AI-generated code. This will also help in the process. Recognize all of the limitations that I've mentioned, so around people-pleasing bias, model knowledge cutoff date as well. Be also aware of the context engineering skills and prompt engineering skills, and everything around file and rule inclusion. This is to have a better context management skill as well. And also security tooling embedded in the pipeline. Obviously, this is all on the developer responsibility to make sure that they do leverage AI tooling the correct way. Cool. So let's move on to the takeaways and some resources that I'd like to share with you. So first of all, the goal here is not to prevent AI coding. It's more to know how to leverage the tools and how to secure it appropriately. And here we're more talking about AI-assisted engineering more than vibe coding. So AI coding is a new paradigm shift. It's a fundamental shift in development approaches, and it's really important to actually know how to secure those. But as I mentioned, regardless of the source of the code, should it be from the developers, from Stack Overflow for different forms, or from AI coding, should actually go through your pipeline to catch all of those security vulnerabilities. And also, before sharing the resources, I wanted to share this post from Adi Osmani. He's one of the person behind the Chrome browser. He's an engineer at Google, and just to show how well, vibe coding, probably not the term. Well, I'll explain to you. It's more AI-assisted engineering, how it works in really big enterprise at FANG. This is a good example. So here we have one good story from an AI engineer working at a FANG, and this is the whole process. So as you can imagine, at a FANG, they do have quite a strong process. So usually they start with the technical design documents, and this would include, you might imagine, the full architecture integration with other teams and all of those discussions. Then you have the design review before launching into the development efforts. Then you have when you pass review. So there's a lot of checks here. Then the first few weeks are spent doing, again, more documentation on each of the subsystems. So again, a lot of documentation and talks with different teams. Then you have the backlog development and sprint planning. This is with the PMs. And then finally, step 5, software development. This is where AI comes and can be a force multiplier, as he's mentioning. They're using TDD, so test-driven developments. So I have the AI coding agent write the test first for the feature I'm going to build. Only then I do start using the agent to build out the features. So this is where AI is leveraged, step 5. And also step 6, this is for the code review, the code submission review. So you'd have 2 developers plus AI reviewing the code. And then they would test in staging, and then they will push to prod. So you can see there's a full process here. Everything is structured, but they're leveraging AI here, and this is where you could leverage tools like, for example, Cursor, Windsurf, Cloud Code, and all the others. So this is where the coding agents are in game here. TLDR, always start with a solid design, doc, and architecture. Build from there in chunks. Always write tests first. So as you can see, this little TLDR, this is not vibe coding at all. If you remember Karpathy definition at first, this is more, as I'm calling it, the AI-assisted engineering. Cool. So let me share with you a few resources if you want to continue that journey on securing vibe coding. So first of all, we do have a dedicated hub where we have all of this resources that I'm going to share here. So here you have all of the classic security vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. So hard-coded secrets, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, path reversal. If you click on one of them, you have this one-pager from Snyk Learning. You can select your ecosystem. This is one page. You don't need to install anything on your machine. You can have a look at the snippet of code and learn a bit more about this vulnerability. So this is for the classic security vulnerabilities. We're talking about AI. So we do have new AI vulnerabilities. So supply chain, business information, sensitive information disclosure, excessive agencies. These are all part of the top 10 LM, and we do have lessons for each of them. And the good thing is you can actually go through some of the scenario. You can click on the little button here, so you don't need to install anything on your machine. Everything is sandbox here to upskill your security skills and knowledge. Also, if you're still unfamiliar with MCP, we do have a lot of resources. Here, there's a mix of articles, and if you're a visual person, we do have YouTube channel and videos as well. And more resources around AI bomb, shadow AI, all the terms that I've mentioned during this session, all is covered here. If you want something a little bit more hands-on labs, got you covered. I created 2 Try Hack Me labs. So this is something a bit more hands-on. If you're familiar with Try Hack Me, you're following Jessica. She's a security engineer. She has been tasked by her CISO to implement security tools. You're going to follow the journey with her and learn a bit more about setting up a CI/CD pipeline, how to secure GitHub Actions, security champions, return investment, DevSecOps, and all of that. So if you want something a bit more hands-on, go try Hack Me. So that's the first bit. Also, if you're in San Francisco in October 22nd, 23rd, we're organizing the AI Security Summit. So this is if you're in San Francisco. If you can't make it, we do have also a virtual securing the shift to AI native if you want to participate to all of these AI discussions. So also this is happening. This second one is happening on October 22nd. We do have a lot of things happening in the AI ecosystem, which is great. So I'm Sonya Moisset. I'm a staff AI security advocate at Snyk. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so on LinkedIn at Sonya Moisset. And yeah, I would like to thank you all for listening. I hope you did learn a few things. I know there were a lot of terms, so that's why we're sharing with you this page with a lot of resources. But if you only have one thing to retain is that if you're using AI tools, just make sure to have security tools within your pipeline to actually catch security vulnerabilities. So regardless of the code where it's coming from, developers or AI tools, just make sure that you do have those guardrails to help you write more secure code. Let's say. Thank you all. I don't know if there's any questions. I haven't seen. I don't know if Micah, if you did catch a few questions or if you did answer some questions.
So there's one question I'll read out to you. It's, why do your transmissions always have hangups, or do you miss transmissions for a bit and then do they resume later?
Is that like a technical issue? I don't know. I don't know for the other participants if it was okay on their end. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe that is. If that's not related, we'll just move on. I didn't receive any other questions. All right. So if you don't have any, or if you want to give any final remarks, Sonya, now is the time to do that. Otherwise, we will start closing out.
No, just a reminder, if you just want to learn more, we do have this hub that I share. I'm just going to share it one more time. If you want to just review all the terms that I've mentioned, I think the recording also will be available. So just if you want to review all these new terms from the that ecosystem, yeah.
Actually, Frank has a question here. Do you guys have multiple supported languages?
So Frank, I don't know if your question is more around languages other than English when you're prompting. Yeah, so that would depend on the model. I would recommend you to go on their documentation to see if they do have support for other spoken languages. I know they do really have great results with English, because this is where you have they had a lot of data to train on. Yeah, this is German, Arabic, or Chinese. Yeah, so this would depend on the model. If you want better results, I would potentially say trying to use models they have been trained on these languages. So Arabic and Chinese, for example, Chinese with DeepSeek, if you want to have better results. Yeah, I would recommend you to go on their documentation. They're usually mentioning the languages where they have they're supporting. But that's a fair question. Yeah, you're right.
And then for MCP servers, how reliable are they?
I would say that depends on the publisher. So this is like any project, you should follow best security best practices when you're building the MCP. We know that there have been some security issues with MCPs, but this will depend on the publisher. And if you're selecting an MCP, I would say do the same as you're selecting extensions, for example, on the VS Code or on the GitHub Marketplace. So see the number of stars, the number of installs, things like that, just to see if there's any red flags.
All right. Well, I think that is time for a great spot for a conclusion. So Sonya, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. It's been a pleasure having you. I want to thank everyone else for joining us today as well, for all of the comments and the chats and the questions. But I do want to mention before we close out, we do have a survey in the resource section. If you want to go ahead and take that, it's 4 quick, easy questions. It helps us out here at TechStrong. It helps out the Snyk team. Your input is invaluable. It does go a long way. And once again, this program was recorded. You will receive an email in your inbox shortly after we conclude. And I hope to see everyone on the next TechStrong Learning program. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.